Hey there, and thanks as always for tuning in. So these days, it seems like artificial intelligence, or AI, is taking over the world. Figuratively speaking, of course, at least for now. But even while using AI assistants like ChatGPT and Claude to be more productive in our daily work has become downright normal, there are lots of things about these technologies that are decidedly far from normal. And in today's video, we're going to explore some of the most fascinating and occasionally downright weird things about these AI models that have practically turned the world upside down overnight. For starters, there's the matter of just how much data goes into training the large language models that are the core technology behind ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and so on. The numbers are simply staggering. GPT-4, the model behind the latest version of ChatGPT, was trained on hundreds of trillions of words. To put that in perspective, if you were to read continuously at an average pace of 250 words per minute, without ever stopping to sleep or eat, it would take you over 700,000 years to read through that training data. To think about it another way, think about every book you've ever read in your life. Now imagine every book in your local library. Now think bigger. Imagine every book in the Library of Congress, the largest library in the world. Even that only contains about 39 million books, or roughly 3.9 trillion words. And GPT-4's training data dwarfs this by orders of magnitude. And it's not just books. These models are trained on virtually every type of text you can imagine. Scientific papers, news articles, websites, social media posts. Hopefully they're kind of selective about using those, computer code, and much more. In fact, if you've ever written anything on the public internet, there's a decent chance that some version of it was included in ChatGPT's training data. Bad news for most of us who had a MySpace page back in the day, I guess. Now, the massive scale of this training data is actually crucial to how these models work. In order to understand the subtle nuances and complex relationships in human communication, they need to see examples of language being used in almost every possible context. It's kind of like a human being learning a new language. The more examples you're exposed to, the better you become at understanding and using that new language. Now, it stands to reason that the enormous amount of data used to train these large language models, or LLMs for short, requires an equally enormous amount of energy. Training an especially large LLM like ChatGPT can consume as much electricity as 100 American households use in an entire year. Just the initial training of GPT-3, which is much smaller than the current GPT-4 model, produced about 552 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions, equivalent to driving a car back and forth across the United States 550 times. And by some estimates, GPT-4 required about 40 times more energy to train than GPT-3. That is one energy-hungry chatbot. The computing power needed for training large language models is in fact so intense that special facilities are required, packed with thousands of specialized computer processors working in parallel. These facilities generate so much heat that they require massive cooling systems just to keep the hardware from melting down. Now, this massive energy expenditure has naturally sparked discussions about AI's environmental impact and the need to develop more energy-efficient training methods. But on the flip side of that, some companies are looking to additional sources of energy to power their AI systems, including nuclear power. Just for example, the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant in Pennsylvania, the site of the worst nuclear accident in U.S. history, is reopening, and Microsoft plans to purchase all the electricity from that reactor to power its data centers and infrastructure, including its growing artificial intelligence efforts. And most of the other big movers and shakers in tech, like Google, Amazon, and Meta, have shown interest in using nuclear power to support their energy-hungry data centers and AI systems. Artificially intelligent machines and nuclear power. What could possibly go wrong, right? Anyway. Now, if the prospect of a bunch of nuclear power-hungry, super-intelligent machines doesn't get your attention, consider this. Even though we understand how large language models work in general, we don't fully understand how they make the specific decisions they do. For example, given a specific input to ChatGPT, say, write a happy birthday email to a coworker I don't particularly care about, and ChatGPT's subsequent response, we can't explain exactly how it arrived at that response. Now, sure, the engineers who helped create ChatGPT understand the mechanism by which that response was produced, but as of now, no one knows exactly how to trace through all the layers of the massive neural networks that make up the underlying LLM to get to precisely why a specific response was produced. We can observe what goes in and what comes out, but the exact path between those points remains somewhat mysterious. This contrasts with traditional computer programs, which work more like a recipe. With enough effort, you can trace exactly how they get from input to output, step by step, no matter how complex the recipe is. The underlying issue is that the large language models that power AI assistants like ChatGPT aren't so much engineered as with traditional software, but in a sense grown, almost like a genetically engineered organism. Now, of course, AI engineers have some control over this process and the results, but their ability to understand or fully explain either is far from complete. This explainability problem becomes particularly important when AI models are used for critical decisions. For instance, if an AI system recommends a medical treatment, we'd ideally want to understand exactly how it reached that conclusion. Because without this understanding, it's harder to verify the model's reliability or even to identify potential biases. In short, instead of being able to read the recipe, we're left putting our trust in the chef to get it right. We can taste their food and even know what ingredients went into it, but the precise intuition that guides the chef's choices, which in the case of LLMs emerges from patterns in their training data, remains elusive to even the folks who built/grew those LLMs. And that segues nicely, if ominously, into what many thought leaders in AI consider to be their single biggest concern, especially as these models keep getting smarter and smarter. Alignment. So alignment refers to ensuring that AI systems genuinely pursue the goals and values that we, as humans, want them to have. Now, this might sound straightforward, but it's surprisingly complex. A bit like trying to write a perfectly clear legal contract with absolutely no possible loopholes or misinterpretations. Consider the classic thought experiment where we program an AI system to make paperclips as efficiently as possible. A poorly aligned AI system might decide that converting all of Earth's resources, including humans, into paperclips is the most efficient solution. Now, while this example may seem absurd, I really hope it is, it illustrates a fundamental challenge. How do we ensure that the artificial intelligences that so many companies are working so hard to create understand not just our explicit instructions, but also all of the sort of implicit constraints and values that seem obvious to us as humans? Now, it's true that these systems learn from human-written text, but that doesn't mean they automatically absorbed human values or common sense. They might learn to mimic ethical behavior, but they don't truly understand or care why certain actions are right or wrong. And of course, the alignment challenge only grows more important as AI systems become more capable. A quasi-intelligent system that's indifferent to human welfare is one thing, but a super-intelligent system that looks at us like ants is entirely another. And on that, not at all disturbing note, I think I'll go outside for a nice walk now, as far away from paperclips and computers as I can possibly get. But I'll be back with another video very soon, where I'll talk about something a lot less scary than AI using nuclear power to turn us into paperclips. I promise. Okay, I'll see you then.